So, what are inspectors looking for when you're plumbing a brand new pool or spa? Well, in this episode of the We Are Pools podcast, I'm going to be going over pool and spa plumbing and inspections. So, if you're new to plumbing or if you're a homeowner that's building your own pool and you're at the plumbing stage of your project, stick around. This information might be helpful to you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like and share this video so that you can get notified on future episodes as I post them. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about are the terminologies. And again, I'm going to remind everybody that I am from East Riverside County, portion of Southern California. This is going to be specifically plumbing and inspections in this area. Since all my work is out here, I'm aware that there's different requirements and different codes, different types of inspections in different parts of the world. So I know everybody does things a little differently. So that's why I'm going to specifically talk about the inspections that we go through, at least I go through out in East Riverside County. So some of the terminologies that might be good to familiarize yourself with at the beginning, I'm going to point out or try to explain as best as I can. So to begin, let's say you have a pool and a spa, right? And you're getting ready to plumb it, and whether you're, like I said, you're a pool plumber that's new to plumbing, or you're a homeowner that's at the plumbing stage of your swimming pool project, these are probably the most basic terminologies that you might hear. Okay. I pulled up this diagram that I made just to kind of demonstrate the different parts of pool and spa and pool equipment plumbing. I won't go into detail on how to plumb a pool and spa. More so, it's going to be something just to kind of show you what each component is and what it's supposed to do. So again, I know there's listeners out there that aren't viewing this, so I'll try to explain this as best as I can. So bear with me if I'm not explaining to you guys as simply as I can, but I'm gonna do my best. So over on the pool side, and you don't have to have a pool and spa combo. I mean, people build pool only and spa only projects. This just so happens to be an example of a pool and a spa combination where the pool and spa, they share the same equipment. So, over on the pool side, some of the major components are going to be your skimmer, which is usually located at the deep end of your swimming pool. And a skimmer also has a lid that is set in place on your pool deck so that you can access what's inside of it, called a basket or a strainer basket. This is also going to be the primary intake section of your pool. So the position of these varies. Different plumbers install them in different sections, or designers are placing them in specific sections just depending on the pool and the location and what you're surrounded by as far as trees, high winds, things like that. So the position of this varies, but that's what the skimmer is, and it's usually located at the deep end of the pool. There's different types of skimmers out there. Some of the ones that I install have what you call a water bond built into them. And what a water bond is in this part of, like I said, East Riverside County, we're required to install what you call an equipotential bond. And part of that equipotential bond is we have to install a water bond, which is basically a bonding lug that's always constantly has a point of contact with the water. So there's a couple different ways to do this part. Some of the skimmers have built-in water bonds, which is neat. I like to use those. There's basically a bonding plate inside the throat of the skimmer that has contact with water at all times from the inside of it. And then on the exterior part of it, there's a little bonding lug attachment that we can tie in our equipotential bonding, our bonding lug to, if that makes sense. So the other way to do it is you can plumb a T into some of your pool and spa plumbing, where you can then install a water bond that threads into your plumbing, where you can then tie off your water bonding. They usually require an 8 gauge solid bare copper wire for the equipotential bond. So that's just to kind of cover that part. Also, if you noticed, or if you've heard these terms called main drains. So main drains, these are usually going to be located at the deepest part of your pool. So out here in East Riverside County, our inspectors are looking for 36-inch distance between each main drain, and we're required to have 3 points of suction out here. Your primary suction point is the skimmer being 1. And since the skimmers that we work with out here have 2 ports, one of the ports from underneath the skimmer gets plumbed in all the way over to your pool equipment, and the other port goes all the way into the deep end, so that you can then install main drains. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to do this too. There's different types of main drains out there, but for the most part, the way that we're used to having our inspectors check our main drains is over on the deep end. We split the main drains right in the middle, and what I mean by split is, instead of having one main drain like they used to do it back in the days, I wasn't around that early enough to plumb pools with single main drains, but throughout the years, as you know, the codes developed and things like that, they went from having or requiring one main drain to splitting that main drain into 2. So you basically would just do it, install a T right in the center of the 2, and inspectors require a 36-inch distance between the 2, from inside edge to inside edge. So once that's in place, the way we are used to doing it in these areas is you split the main drains 36 inches apart before you plumb the riser, which is basically the pipe that gets pointed vertically or towards the sky, to stub that out. And then, you know, I usually leave about 2 feet coming out of the ground and cap it, so that, you know, we can pressurize the system, and there's plenty of PVC left, so that people can, when it's time to cut these pipes down at a future point in the project, you know, there's plenty of PVC pipe there to that, you know, the next person that, for example, the pebble or plaster guys that are installing their interior finish, they can cut down, and there's plenty of PVC for them to work with, so that they can install their main drain covers and things like that. So that's the main drains. Now, also in the pool, you'll probably hear pool returns. You know, that's another terminology you'd want to get used to hearing. So your pool returns are basically your plumbing that It's going from your pool equipment, filtered water's being filtered through your pool equipment, and then when the water flows through your pool equipment and back out of your pool equipment, it's coming back to your pool or spa. So if you're talking about your pool returns, this is where your filtered water is coming back to your pool. And the positioning of these varies. Normally, and again, this varies, right? There's just different variations of the depths of where you install these pool return lines. But I'll just give you an example, like a typical pool that has maybe 2 or 3 pool returns. I usually am used to plumbing them, anywhere between 10 to 12 inches in depth from the top of your we call it form, and the top of the form is basically the very top part of the pool structure before your finished grade, if that makes sense. So if you can imagine looking at a pool and at the water line, you'll see like a 6-inch tile. The top of that 6-inch tile is usually the top of our forms that we're working with before you start to get into your finished grade. So like what I mean by finished grade is, your coping finishes, your concrete finishes, whatever it is you're installing above that structure of the pool. That's what I mean by top of form. So I hope that makes sense. So like I said, 10 to 12 inch depths from the top of our forms usually is a pretty good area for pool returns to be placed or installed at. And some areas that might be sections where your pool returns are a little more shallow are areas like, for example, if you see this diagram, you'll notice there's a reef step or a Baja shelf. People call it different things, but it's a shallow section of a pool that only has like 12 inches of water depth. These are areas where you might need pool returns installed here just to get water to, flow or get pushed through and directed towards, let's say, like if your reef step is over on your shallow end, or your Baja shelf is over on your shallow end, and your skimmer is like at the complete opposite end, you're probably going to want to install pool returns on that Baja shelf or shallow end of your pool so that you can force water over to your skimmer. Excuse me, one second, guys. Let me sneeze a little bit. Had to hold a sneeze. Yeah, so the areas like Baja shelves or reef steps, it's not uncommon to see pool returns here. So since it's such a shallow area, the depths of these pool returns can vary between 8 to 10 inches. So it's a little tricky to get them install them here, but it's not uncommon and it's possible. So those are pool returns on the pool. Now you might also hear what you call a vacuum cleaner line, which is pretty much this line right here. It's usually in the center of your pool, or I've also heard different plumbers call it pool sweep or dedicated vacuum lines. Those are the basics. You have cleaner. You'll hear cleaner a lot. You'll hear dedicated cleaner line, or you'll even hear pool sweep. So this is so that you can attach a automatic vacuum cleaner. It's basically a suction line. If you've ever seen pools that have those little vacuum cleaners kind of creeping around the floor, then they usually have a hose attached to them that then get connected on some sort of port on your pool walls. That's the vacuum cleaner line. So you'll get to familiarize yourself with that term for your vacuum cleaner lines. Now those are pretty much the basics of the pool side. So you have, and then actually before I forget, you have autofill too. So there's different types of autofills. There's some, there's some autofills that have a float valve assembly inside them that work kind of like a little floaters. That's as the water is evaporating, that floater is slowly dropping, and as it drops to a certain level, the floater would then allow incoming water to fill that pool, so that when the pool is running low on water, there's new fresh water being introduced to your pool, so that by the time it's filling up, that floater would then also rise and shut off the water coming in. So your autofills are going to be installed in a place where you can introduce water into your pool. So those are the basics for the pool. Now, on a jacuzzi or a spa, it's almost the same as a swimming pool, other than, you have a bunch of what you call therapy jets or spa jets. Let's start with the main drains. There's still main drains here, and same thing with the pool. Inspectors are going to want to see the main drains installed 36 inches apart from each other. So placement of these will also vary, just depending on how big or small your spa is. It's not uncommon to see, small spas that might be hard or difficult to get that 36-inch distance. So if you have a, let's say, I don't know, like I've seen some small spas. I've seen like 5x5s, 5x6s, half moon spas where I've even worked with them where I just could not get the 36-inch distance. It's not a bad idea to call your building inspector and ask to see if you can't get those 36 inches apart on the floor of your jacuzzi, if there's other alternatives. And I believe a lot of building codes in certain areas allow a closer distance between them, as long as they're on different planes. What I mean by planes is you can install one of the main drains on the floor of the jacuzzi or your spa, and then the floor will be the first plane, and the second plane of your main drains for the jacuzzi, you can install the second main drain maybe on the actual vertical part of your spa bench. That would be the second plane. So that's two different planes. And if you were to get a measuring tape between the two, you might get a shorter, you'll still get 36 inches apart, but since it's on different planes, let me see if I can explain this without getting myself mixed up here, guys. Bear with me, all right? So if you were to try to do 36 inches apart on the floor, and like your jacuzzi is just not wide enough for you to get that, well, you can on two different planes, you can install the one floor drain as far as you can. Like, let's say I'm going to show you on the screen right here. Let's say you install one of them right here on this far corner of it, and then the second one on the spa bench, like on the opposite corner. And when you get your measuring tape up between those two, now you might have those 36 inches. So hopefully I didn't freaking screw up right there and explain that kind of like odd, but that's how you would achieve that on smaller spas. Because like I said, inspectors are still requiring 36 inches apart for spa main drains. So for therapy jets, so there's also different requirements in different areas. When you're plumbing a spa or a jacuzzi, I've been in areas where, and just to backtrack a little bit, all of our plumbing, we're required to use long radius 90s or sweep 90s. There's different parts or different areas that will allow regular hard 90 fittings. So what I mean by long radius 90s or sweep 90s is they're long radius 90s. So California, or this part of California, requires us to use those fittings. And it's mainly usually geared towards your primary filtration plumbing. So like, for example, when your plumber or whoever's plumbing your jacuzzi is at the point of starting to plumb the jacuzzi, you have it's plumbing in the loop. And again, I'm not going to get into specifics on how to plumb a jacuzzi, but some areas will allow you to install regular hard 90s on your spa air loops. And what an air loop is basically there's got to be an air loop installed as part of your spa jet plumbing for it to achieve that bubble effect or that aeration effect. You need to install the air loop. So since these air loops are they're usually small air loops, like in 1-inch PVC, some areas will let you install hard 90s in air loops for spas, because spas have a very, very minimal amount of space to work in. There's rebar, there's just so many things in the way. You have to really, really plumb a spa very carefully, because you could run out of room fast. So hard 90s are nice to use in confined spaces, but like I said, sometimes an inspector in certain parts, certain areas out here won't want or allow you to install hard 90s. They'll require sweep 90s. So that'll come to play if it's always safe to call an inspector. Just give them a call and ask if you're uncertain, or if you're even questioning it. Give an inspector a call and say, hey, do you guys need hard 90s or sweep 90s on my spa air loop? And they should be able to tell you. So that's just something that keep in mind. So it's basically that, for a spa, your main drain's also 36 inches apart. Your therapy jets, there's an industry standard for the placement of these jets. So that's pretty basic. And then your spa light, that's going to be installed probably in the spa bench, on the vertical part of your spa bench. So that covers the pool and the spa as far as terminologies. So just a little recap on your pool. You have a skimmer, an autofill, main drains, pool returns, vacuum cleaner or pool sweep, and your pool lights. Those are the basic terminologies for a pool. And then on your spa, you have also main drains and your therapy jets and your spa light. Pretty basic. So moving on over to now the process of actually starting to plumb a pool or spa. Okay, so inspectors are also looking for specific depths as far as like trenching. So when it comes to trenching, in the areas that I've worked in, inspectors are usually looking for 18-inch depth. And they're measuring off of from the finished elevation to the top of the PVC pipe. Okay, so that means, majority of plumbing is for residential. With a basic pool, 30 by 15 pool, maybe your pool equipment's like 20 to 40 feet away from your pool. It would usually require, just basic plumbing, nothing too crazy. You'll see plumbing between 1-inch and maybe 3-inch PVC plumbing. If it's something crazier, like beyond that, you could see 4-inch and beyond. But just just know that inspectors are measuring from the finished grade, wherever your finished grade is going to be, to the top of the pipe, of your PVC pipe. So if you have a 4-inch pipe, you got to excavate your trench so that the top of that pipe still is underneath that 18-inch depth requirement, because inspector will come out and take out that measuring tape, and if it's not deep enough, they'll make you take that plumbing out and dig it up however much more deep you need to go. So that's important. I like to give a minimum of 3-inch spacing for each pipe. Obviously on PVC, that's less than 3 inches in diameter, as far as how much room I need on the width, the overall width of my trench to fit all my pipes. So for example, if I have 10 2-inch pipes that I'm gonna lay inside a trench, I'm still giving it 3 inches per each pipe. So if I got 10 of them, that's 30 inches. So this just is something that I've kind of like learned to get used to. It gives me enough space to work, things like that. So that's how wide I'm digging it. So it just depends on the size pipe. Now, another thing on trenching, sometimes you'll run into areas where, let's say, there's a lot of boulders and rocks and things like that. Whenever you have those soil conditions, inspectors will want you to install a bed of sand so that none of your PVC pipes are directly laying on any sharp boulders that could potentially damage them in the future. So if that's the case, for example, we live near a city in Inland Empire that's called Rancho Cucamonga, Fontana, and it's all over the place. But let's say you run into these boulders, you're digging to your 18-inch below finished grade, and you hit boulders. So when that happens to you, you just know that you're gonna have to over excavate it, and I can't remember off the top of my head the minimum thickness of the bed of sand that you're required to place if you do run into boulders, but I believe it's anywhere between 2 and 3 inches in thickness. So you just got to know you gotta over dig your trenches to bring in some sand and fill that to create your bed for your plumbing to lay on top of. So that's if you're running into rocky areas. So that's pretty much trenching. Okay. Now, once the inspector comes and they measure the depth and say, okay, it's good, we can start kind of going over the plumbing for the pool. So let me show you guys on this slide here, if I can pull this up. So for your pool and spa plumbing, on all the underground work, inspectors are going to want to see you using purple primer underground. That's something that they'll definitely check. So don't, at least out here, in, like I said, in the area that I'm out, that I work out of, don't try to get away with clear primer. They're definitely going to want to see purple primer on all your fittings. So it's not uncommon to see plumbers kind of prime PVC pipe a little bit exaggerated, kind of like this picture right here. But that's just to show inspectors that we're using it. We're making sure that it's the chemical well between the purple primer and the glue is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So it prevents leaks and things like that. But primer is definitely something that inspectors are going to look at. And then as far as stubbing the pipes out of the ground, obviously this whole entire plumbing system has to get pressurized. So the pool plumbing inspectors are going to want to see that it's holding a minimum of 35 psi, and we're filling up these lines with water. So it's not air. It's, at least over here, we're required to fill up the PVC pipes with water, and we're doing it with with a pressure gauge that is rated for water. So it can't be any like hydraulic pressure gauges, things like that. At least the inspectors require us to use a pressure gauge that's built for water. And we're doing 35 psi. So as long as you got that covered, it should be a pass on that portion of the inspection. So now there might be situations where, for example, because you can install your equipment at this stage also, but if, let's say, you don't have the equipment yet and you need to stub your pipes up, just follow that 35 psi and loop your plumbing how you're supposed to, so that you can pressurize. But if you do have your equipment on site at the same time that you're getting all the underground plumbing completed, then whether your equipment's going on plastic pads or equipment pads, inspectors are going to want to see your equipment strapped down to your concrete pads or anchored down, however you need to do it. So for example, like a pump, they usually have little sections at the base of your pumps so that you can drill a hole into through and install an anchor so that you can basically bolt it down to your pad. So inspectors are definitely going to look for this. What else are they looking for? You're going to want to bond everything too. So part of that equipotential bond that I was talking about earlier, that's that 8 gauge bare copper wire that's running around the perimeter of your pool and spa. Well, that same wire has to come back all the way to your pool equipment so that you can then bond your pool equipment. Let's see if I could pull this up here. Sorry guys, I'm still getting used to using this software, so I'm trying to do all this at the same time. So again, the pool equipment, so your pump is going to have a bonding lug behind it near the motor. Your heater is also going to have a bonding lug, and your controller, majority of all the electrical components are going to have bonding lugs. So an inspector is definitely going to want to see that equipotential bond is also over at your pool equipment, and every component is that same wire is being attached to all the electrical components of your plumbing system. So and again, since you have the equipment on site, or if you have the equipment on site, you can plumb the equipment in also. And since the filter has a pressure gauge on it, or you could still put your own pressure gauge on it, you can fill up your system with water at this point also. And once that pressure gauge on top of the filter, let's say, reaches 35 psi, that should be good enough for the inspector to give you a pass on that. So those are pretty much the basics. I suppose a couple of other details we can talk about are some of the clearances on the rebar, structural rebar over at your pool. So if you notice, or out here in California, if you've gotten your permit and your pool plans, you'll typically see a set of structural engineering details attached to those pool plans, and majority of them, the way that they're designed is to allow you certain distances between your structural rebar and the actual PVC plumbing. So double check and read up on your specific engineering plans, but it's not uncommon to see an allowance of 3 inches minimum over on the pool. So that means that you can be 3 inches away from your rebar, so that when you're hanging pipes up against the rebar of your pool, as long as you're installing 3-inch spacers, then you're not compromising the integrity of that structure according to the engineering details. Jacuzzis or spas, since it's very, very tight, you'll definitely see a little bit more rebar inside a jacuzzi. And forgive me if my terminology is not 100% correct on rebar. As you know, I plumb pools and I'm a pool equipment installer, so I'm not too from the most accurate at the rebar terminologies. But to get back at the point, the rebar in your jacuzzi, you'll usually see a little more rebar installed in a jacuzzi, because a lot of structural engineering details, since there's additional rebar in a jacuzzi, structural engineering details will allow you, let's say, like a 1-inch distance between the rebar and your plumbing. So it's not uncommon to see spacers to create that 1-inch distance between the rebar and your PVC plumbing, so that also you're not compromising the structural integrity of your spa or your jacuzzi. So those are pretty basic. So 3 inches on the pool is not uncommon to see on your structural engineering. So you can be 3 inches away with your plumbing, and 1 inch on the jacuzzi. So, and inspectors they definitely will get that measuring tape out and check those things. I mean, it's happened to me and it might happen to you. So like I said, if you're ever unsure, pick up that phone, call the inspector and ask them. They're usually pretty helpful. So what else can we cover? Let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, for final inspections, maybe I forgot to mention this. Let me see if I can pull up that picture for the pool equipment. So final inspections for at least pool plumbing, we've already covered the bonding. We've already covered anchoring the equipment down. Everything's pressurized. Oh, this is another one too that it varies in different areas. But, out here in California, we're required to paint our PVC pipes. So I know there's a lot of areas out there that don't need paint, but, we're supposed to do it. So part of the final inspection is paint PVC for UV protection, things like that. And also inspectors they're checking that the pool lights are protected by what you call a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, which is basically a weather rated receptacle that protects the pool lights. So and it's not uncommon to have an inspector come out and hit that reset button over on the at the receptacle to make sure that whoever installed the pool light circuitry did it in a safe manner, so it prevents anybody from getting hurt or shocked or electrocuted, whatever you want to call it. That's one of the things that an inspector is definitely going to want to check. So make sure those pool lights are GFCI protected with an approved receptacle. And again, guys, if there's, like I said, if there's any doubt or if there's any questions, hopefully you have a cool inspector that's, helpful. They usually are, at least in my experience, but it does not hurt to give them a call. So I think we covered everything as far as pool plumbing inspections and equipment. If there's anything I miss, my apologies. There's a lot of moving parts, and so hopefully I give you guys some pretty insightful information regarding this part. And if there's anything else I'm trying to think of, let's see, we got terminology. So let's just do a recap real fast. We're gonna do this so we can kind of go over everything. So just a recap, terminologies, get used to listening to these terminologies. You got skimmer, main drains, autofill, pool returns, spa returns or spa jets, vacuum cleaner or pool sweep or dedicated cleaner line, pool lights, spa lights, trenching, 18-inch depths from finished grade for your plumbing, Main drains at your pool 36 inches apart. Same with the spa. Main drains 36 inches apart. 8-gauge solid bare copper wire for your equipotential bonding. You want to pressurize your plumbing for the pool at 35 psi. Now, if you're running gas line, I didn't cover too much of gas, but if you are, gas plumbing is required to be pressurized with air, at least out here at 15 psi. And purple primer underground. You want your water bond in place, whether it's at your skimmer or a hard plumbed water bond inside your PVC plumbing. Your pool lights are GFCI protected with the approved weather rated receptacle. And anchor your equipment down to your concrete pads. Paint your PVC plumbing at the end. So I believe that's pretty much everything. So again, guys, if hope you guys found this information helpful. If there's anything I missed, or if there's anything you would like me to cover, drop a comment in the comment section below. So forgive me if I'm a little bit stuttery or jitterish. It's kind of hard to do the whole technology demonstration and try to talk at the same time. So hopefully I get better at it. Hopefully I get better at explaining things to everybody. It's part of the process. It's part of the reason why I started, because this podcast is to I have a couple of personal growth goals also, but that's what this community is about. That's why it's called We Are Pools. Again, community where we're all pretty much on the same page as far as positivity, leaving room for growth, support. So that's pretty much it for this. Again, guys, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for all the subscribers. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video, so that you can get notified when I upload more videos in the future. And again, if there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments section below, and maybe we can make another episode on those comments in the future. But with that being said, guys, that's this episode of the We Are Pools podcast. Thank you so much. I know it was today is actually January 1st, so 2024. So I hope everybody out there had a great New Year's with their friends, families, and loved ones. And I just want to wish everybody a very, very prosperous 2024. I hope, everybody's excited as I am about this year. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.